My name is Jim Chamberlain. I'm District 5 Supervisor. The other supervisors are mentioned here: JoAnn from District 4, Diane from District 2, Leonard Coring from District 1, and Roger from District 3. Supervisors are elected countywide and serve districts within the county. I'll go ahead and share my screen now, if I can. Oops, that didn't work. All right, can everybody see that? Nope. Well, maybe I won't. Okay, there we go. I wanted to start with this picture. I think it's a pretty powerful example. This is Providence Canyon in Georgia, and this was farmed starting in the early 1800s. And a large part of this, it's called the Little Grand Canyon, was due to soil erosion. I think it speaks power to speaks to the power of erosion. SWCDs at their core are a volunteer conservation organization. I serve as board chair for Crow Wing, and I'm honored and humbled to be in that position. Our SWCD has been doing great work lately. I think through citizen driven initiatives, just a few ones that come to the top of my mind that I think we've done great work on recently is the Serpent Lake project, where over a period of 8 or 10 or even maybe longer, we implemented a series of projects, and now we're seeing improved SECI readings there. The dam project up on the Pine River was a big one that we just recently completed that was citizen driven. And then up in Crosslake on Highway 66 and the stormwater work being done up there is really great work. And I think what also speaks to the conservation ethic of our citizens is the fact that we've sold almost 1 million trees, and we should hopefully be hitting that mark before too long through our annual tree sale. My personal reason for wanting to be on this board is my passion around soil health and a desire to get more agricultural conservation in the soil and water district. Since we moved out of the NRCS office, we've kind of lost a lot of that, what we had at one time, and that's been the core of SWCDs. So proud to announce that Crow Wing and Cass County were rewarded by the National Association of Conservation District the Earth Team Award for 2020 for our work primarily around the Pine River Watershed, one watershed, one plan, in collaboration with the NRCS. And that we're working on a strategic plan with NRCS to work closer to them. We know that in-field conservation practices like no-till and cover crops and adaptive grazing can be 15 times more effective in terms of phosphorus removal than edge of field practices like sediment basins, and riparian buffers are somewhere around as much as 30 times higher than in-field practices for conservation. So that's our goal. I just learned yesterday that Paul Johnson recently passed away yesterday, and Paul Johnson was chief of the NRCS during the Clinton administration back in the 1990s, and I heard him and became aware of him recently on a podcast through the Land Stewardship Project called Ear to the Ground, and where Paul spoke to the fact that much of Kansas and Oklahoma might look like this picture if not for voluntary conservation in the 1930s and 40s. He lamented a little bit about his late adoption of the soil health principles and ideals, and was really excited for the future of agricultural conservation. So with that, that's my personal agenda, and I'll stop and I'll turn it over to Melissa, and we'll move on with the rest of our exciting day. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Jim, and welcome to the 2021 Landowner event. We appreciate everyone's time and effort to be a part of this event. I'm just going to quickly go through the agenda and then we'll get started. So hopefully you can all see this now. So we're gonna have the Natural Resource Conservation Service talk a little bit, and then we'll have Crow Wing County, Jacob Frie, and then we have our guest speaker, State Senator Carrie Ruud, and then we're gonna kind of hear a little sort of some of the things that have been happening in this region. From Dan Steward, and then each staff will give a quick report. And then we also have some information about one of the projects that Jim indicated, which is the City of Crosslake Island Loon Stormwater Project. And then we have 2 landowner stories. So we do have a lot of people talking, so please try to keep your time, and we'll try to send you guys messages when your time is up. So again, I'm Melissa Barrick. I'm the district manager, and we're really grateful for you all here. I also just want to recognize Representative Heintzman. Thank you for coming today. We really appreciate you being a part of this event. And we'll also appreciate the work that you're doing for us down at the Capitol. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Candy. And if you would like to share your screen, Candy, you should be able to do that.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I'm going to see what I can do for sharing my screen. I just have, it's really quick, so if this doesn't work to share, if this doesn't work to share, it's okay. So I don't even know if I know how to share my screen on Zoom.
If you go to the bottom, there is a green arrow. And then the other thing too is if people have questions, feel free to put your questions in the chat box. Or if you do, you can put your name in the chat box and I can unmute you for each presenter. So go ahead, Candy.
All right, does that work right there? I don't know.
Can you see I can see it. Yep.
Okay, I don't have a lot of slides, so don't worry. I knew I only had 10 minutes. So my name is Candy Fuller. I am the District Conservationist Team Lead for Aiken, Crow Wing, Cass, and Itasca County. We are actually a team, but out of the Baxter office, I put the staff that are out of there. That's Brian, Stefan, and John Berzinka, our soil conservationists here. We do also team up with Aiken, and it's Tom Gervais over in Aiken, and we team up with Itasca, which is Kyle Asplund up there. But I just wanted to give you our contact information and our phone number. And what we do, so Natural Resource Conservation Service, so we work with private landowners, and we can do technical assistance, and hopefully we can turn that into financial assistance. And I just did one quick slide here next with a couple pictures just to kind of show some different projects that we do. Like the first picture I threw up here is I had brought my son out this summer and we were doing some infiltration tests on a crop field that we were going to be putting some cover crops, where the landowner was going to be doing cover crops and no-till, so we were doing some compaction tests. So even though maybe he wouldn't get financial assistance for it, we have different kinds of tests that we can go out and run on land, and we can do this on grazing land, we can do this on cropland. I just have another one where we work with the, oh, I don't think my, I'm sorry, my screen, did it go away here? I don't know where it went. Oh, there it is. Can you still see my PowerPoint?
Yes, we can.
Okay. All right. Sorry. All right. So the other one that we work in a lot of forest lands and woodlands, and we do anything from forest harvest management. We do projects with golden wing warbler for wildlife. We like to promote like down woody debris. So that's kind of why I had that in the picture. That's just one where we're working with a landowner on maybe like a CSP project. And one of the enhancements is having that down woody debris. A lot of people like a clean forest floor, where we would actually kind of promote having natural wildlife structures within your forest region and your forest land. We work with grazers, and we've been doing a lot with the one watershed, or the Pine River watershed. We've been doing a lot in there. This particular picture is not in that watershed, but it just kind of shows some of the things that we do. It's a rubber tire tank. You'll see that. And those have been picking up a lot of popularity in Cass County especially, and then we have some in Crow Wing. But we have the rock around it. You'd see that would be more of like a heavy use protection area, so it keeps it from getting really muddy. And then what we do with these tanks a lot of the times is try to get them to have water source closer to the animals, so the animals are not walking and creating cattle trails, or maybe it's getting them out of the rivers and the lakes and the streams. We can provide them a clean water source. Other things we do with landowners, I have another picture here. We would do high tunnels. So this is a high tunnel that was put up this year that would work with extending the growing season. So instead of having your typical Memorial to Labor Day, producers can now put their plants right in a high tunnel. They plant right in the ground. It's a little different than a greenhouse. And they could probably start growing in April, and they can harvest all the way till November. So they can sell that at our local markets and reduce some energy and keep things local. Other things we do is Pollinator Gardens. So I kind of have a little picture of a a couple, I don't know, just some plants to represent that. We work with a lot of different landowners on trying to do half acres or more of pollinators, whether it's on the edge of a crop field or maybe in an area of a forest land that's getting a mono species. We try to put some diversity in there. We do a whole array of other projects, but we cover the cropland, the pasture land, forest land, farmsteads, just kind of odd areas. And again, that's our contact information. Just one more time. I don't know if anyone has any questions, but you can, if you are going to stop by the office, with the COVID going on, I just suggest you call before you come, because sometimes we're not always all in. Yeah, I don't know if anyone has any questions for me, but that's what we do for the Natural Resource Conservation Service.
Thank you, Candy. Yeah, so again, really the Natural Resource Conservation Service and the Soil and Water Conservation District kind of started at the same time back in the Dust Bowl as a way to provide those resources to landowners on a more local basis. And so again, they're a federal partner, so they bring federal dollars and provide that technical assistance to landowners. So thank you, Candy. I'm going to go ahead and introduce Jacob Frie. So he's with Crow Wing County Environmental Services Supervisor, and I have enjoyed working with him. One of the reasons I do have enjoyed working with him is because he is a fellow Packer fan in a kind of purple country. And so it's been fun to get to know him over the last couple years. So go ahead and Jake, if you want to unmute and turn your video on.
Awesome. I think I've got my video on. If folks can't see me, then it might be a technical issue on my end, but I think the video is good, sounds on, we're good to go. I don't have actually a PowerPoint presentation, but I do have a lot of great statistics that I'm going to throw at everyone here. And again, my name is Jake Frie. I'm one of the environmental services supervisors here in the Land Services Department. Most folks would say I'm the planning and zoning administrator. That's one of the roles we play. We do have Nicole Erickson just listening in today. She's one of our environmental services specialists involved with water planning and AIS, aquatic invasive species protection. So I'm just going to go over basically the year in review for Crow Wing County as it relates to some of the things we've done to help promote water quality in the county and in partnership with the Soil and Water Conservation District. So thanks again, Melissa, the SWCD, and everyone who's invited me to speak here today. It's been a great working relationship with Melissa and her team and with SWCD in general. I just think some really good positive vibes there. So I'm going to start out by recognizing our strong partnership with SWCD. They are a member of our technical evaluation panel for the Wetland Conservation Act, and they provide good expertise there and feedback. They're also the enforcement wing on some of our wetland violations that we have. So very important link there. They've been assisting our office with vegetation restoration plans, where we have property owners that may have either intentionally or unintentionally stripped out the vegetation, for example, near a lake, and then some restoration needs to happen. Soil and Water is helping us get technical expertise to get those areas restored. They also provide some technical expertise on stormwater management creation. So that's been a really good working relationship. They've provided us through the Board of Water and Soil Resources and other resources some stormwater management training for our staff and their staff. They've created a stormwater management video so that the public can understand how to build stormwater management plans better and not have so many errors. They're working on upgrading our existing packet that we have for property owners. We've worked extremely close with Soil and Water on a memorandum of understanding about how our two offices are going to continue to work closely and link together so that we're both working towards the shared vision of conservation in our county. Very excited about implementing that memorandum of understanding. I'm not going to get into it too deep right here because, again, only got 15 minutes, but I'm happy to take any questions about it. We've been a strong relationship on one watershed, one planning with the Soil and Water Conservation District. We work hand in hand along with Bowser and other agencies to make sure that those plans are not bordered off by political boundaries of sections and townships and counties, but it's one plan. And I think we're really trying to get that, to speak to that. And so they've been a close partner there. We know they have a close relationship with our highway department. I'm not going to speak too much about what the highway department has been working on with Soil and Water, but that's been a great relationship as well. So that's kind of my start, is to say that we don't have a silo over in land services and we're vaguely aware of Soil and Water in the basement. We work with them, they work with us, and it's been a very productive relationship. And I see that going forward being great. With that introduction of what role we play with Soil and Water, I'm going to go into some of the more Crow Wing County centric things that we've accomplished to try and maintain and improve water quality in 2020. So we applied for a well sealing grant in 2019 to help seal wells in sensitive aquifers. Proud to announce that at the end of this grant this year that it just ended, we've sealed 88 wells. And that program runs itself. We've got some great contractors that promote it, work with us. And when we seal wells, we're helping to protect groundwater. So 88 wells sealed. As soon as we get another chance to apply for that grant, we're going to do it. And I know we'll be successful. Shifting over to septic upgrade programs, we've got a grant to upgrade septic systems. For those systems that are failing, we work with Region 5 to administrate it. They provide loans and get those folks' septic systems upgraded. We've had 4 upgrades in the last 2 years. We've got 1 more year in that grant, and we expect to use all of the money. And again, more groundwater protection from preventing the persistence of failing systems. Shifting over to compliance inspections. There are many triggers in the county of what triggers compliance inspections for septic systems. We had 945 compliance inspections in 2020, up from 800 in 2019. 93% were compliant, and those that aren't compliant, they're on a 10-month track to get those upgraded and to get them either working or fixed again. So what a great success rate. But know that we're keeping an eye on making sure that our septic systems are working properly. And we have lots of triggers that make sure that that happens. So I think that's a success story, that the compliance is so high and that we're really trying to get those septic systems upgraded. We've had 137 septic system upgrades in Crow Wing County, again, under our jurisdiction. What that means is we've got systems that are failing or need improvements, and they're getting up to code. 137 in 2020. That's up from 93 the year before. So that's another success story that we're furthering and enhancing the protection of groundwater by upgrading septic systems. The next stat that I want to talk about is our stormwater management plans. Crow Wing County, as everyone probably knows, has a very robust land use ordinance. going through some revisions right now. I'm sure many of you have seen that press release, but we have performance standards. And I think we were one of the forerunners to this in the state when this was implemented almost 10 years ago, where if you hit certain impervious thresholds on your lot with a permit, you have to implement stormwater management planning. And if it's high enough, you have to enhance that with a shoreline no-mow buffer, a no maintenance buffer. So I'm pleased to report that in 2020, we've got approximately 87 stormwater management plans that were approved. Now, even though those weren't voluntary, the effect is the same. We're still getting folks to know and understand the value of stormwater management plans, even though they didn't come to us first. And we've told them you're going to need to do this. And we do follow through to make sure that those are implemented within 2 years of the permit or when their project is completed. So 87 stormwater management plans were approved in 2020. If you assume about a 1/4 pound of phosphorus reduction per plan, assuming they're implemented appropriately, that comes out to maybe 20 pounds of phosphorus reduction. And so that's, the small chunks a bit by bit to help create an overall positive effect on the landscape. So we do follow up on all of our stormwater management plans to make sure that they're being installed appropriately. We do estimate that at least 10 of those stormwater plans included a buffer as well. So we do work with the Soil and Water Conservation District to provide some technical expertise. If property owners say, hey, how can I build this buffer better? What does that mean? We send them over to Soil and Water to get some expertise on that. And I think that's been a really good relationship. Lake improvement districts, there are 9 or 10 in the county. We've updated our policy for the lake improvement districts. They're a vital resource and asset to the county for enhanced lake protection. So we continue to monitor their annual reports. We're a partner in what they do. We work with Soil and Water on different projects they might consider. And we've updated our policies to make sure that lake improvement districts have a good understanding of the expectations and roles that they need to have, as well as us understanding in the general public what's going on with those lake improvement districts. So not a lot of statistics there, just more of an update that those are going quite well. Shifting over to aquatic invasive species protection, we're principally charged with taking the state's aid monies, about $450,000 every year, and making sure that we have a good, robust program to prevent the spread of AIS. So in 2020, we performed 64,119 watercraft inspections. That's about 20 to 30% more than 2019. And we did 22,000 watercraft inspection hours, 5% increase since 2019. On 42 landings as part of our program, then at least additional 5 lakes as part of our expanded coverage program. 5,000 additional hours were supported through Lake Association and Lind Fund expansion program. It's the most inspections I believe that we've ever accomplished. And we're probably one of the top counties in the state in terms of the sheer number of inspections in the hours. Again, couldn't have done some of that without our great partners. Only 4% of the folks leaving the landing had a drain plug problem compliance. We had less than 1% of inspections found attached plants to their boat, and less than 1% of inspections found zebra mussels attached when they're entering the lake. And so we also had 225 decontaminations at our Crosslake station and 128 at the mobile decontamination station. I know that's a lot of statistic soup there, a lot thrown at you very quick, but I think the point on that was to show that I think we're just really active with these numbers to show how many people we're impacting, how many hours are spent on educating folks on the right thing to do to help prevent the spread of AIS. And we've really, over the last couple of years, have had very, very low introduction rates of new AIS spread in the county. So very excited about that. I could probably go another half hour about our AIS program, but I think I have 4 minutes left. So I'm going to continue on and go to the next subject here, our enforcements. People at times, either intentionally or unintentionally, are not going to do the right thing that's in our land use ordinance. So we have a system in place where we resolve those issues in a manner that's respectful, but still following the ordinance. So we had the most enforcement cases that we've ever had in the last 5 years, with about 141 new enforcements in Crow Wing County. So a lot of them run the gamut from junk to vegetation to dirt moving, whatever. I want to focus on 2 areas of positivity in regards to our enforcement. First off, we have a high closure rate, and we're making sure that landowners are following through on it and carrying that through. Second, we're working with property owners right now to restore over 20,000 square feet of impacted wetlands. Sadly, that means folks have impacted 20,000 square feet of wetlands that shouldn't have been impacted, but we're working to resolve those and get those restored. We're also working with property owners to restore over 1,500 linear feet of vegetation close to the water where it's restricted. And we're working with them, Soil and Water, to get those resolved and back in a condition that they need to be. So just a couple areas on the enforcement, I think, that are water quality related that I thought I would mention. I've got 2 topics left and 2 minutes, so about a minute for each one of those. We've had the most land use permits and all permits in the county that we've had, at least in the last 5 years, at over 1,150 permits issued. That's up 20% from 2019 and 30% from 2018. There's a lot of activity in the county right now. I was wrong on my prediction, certainly at the beginning of last year with COVID. I thought it would be down. Nope, record year. So that was a journey. That's good, robust economy, but certainly a lot of activity. And then we've had, let's see here, short-term rentals is my last subject item. Part of short-term rentals is just starting. This January, we sent out the letters to try and regulate short-term rentals as part of our new ordinance that was approved recently. We administer the entire county. Part of that means having an appropriately sized septic system and compliance inspections, even without a land use permit, for those short-term rentals. We've had over, I think, 120 rentals applied for so far. I might be off a little bit on that statistic. The number changes daily. And we've had between 40 and 60 septic systems that have been identified to be upgraded in order for them to continue renting as a short-term rental. What we mean by upgraded is the number of bedrooms advertised. Their septic system must be sized for class 1 sizing to meet the number of bedrooms advertised as part of the rental. We want to make sure it's sized appropriately for that. So I think that's another spin on the water quality, groundwater protection strategies as part of short-term rental. So with that, I think I had about 50 seconds left. Time that right. I really appreciate everyone listening to this. I know it was a lot of, oh my gosh, there was a lot of stats, but there's just a lot of cool things going on in the county. I'm very proud to work here, proud to work with Melissa and her team. And I'm guessing, Melissa, there's probably no time for questions. We get to move on to the next.
We can take maybe a couple questions if there's any questions. You can either put them in the chat box or you can unmute and ask your question. All right. Well, if you think of another question, Jake is available. His contact is on the Crow Wing County's website, and his email and his phone number is available with that. So thank you, Jake. I would agree with you that, this last summer that activity-wise, things were very busy around the Brainerd Lakes area, and I think it really does go to show that the resources we have here are very special, and people came because they had more time and not as many other opportunities. And so I think that really goes to show why we do what we do here from the county's perspective, as well as the Soil and Water Conservation District. So thank you. I'm going to go ahead and introduce our guest speaker. We requested Senator Carrie Ruud, who represented District 10, so Crow Wing County and most of Aiken. And she is currently on the she's the chair of the Environmental Natural Resource Policy and Legacy Finance Committee. She is the vice chair of the Environment and Natural Resource Finance. And she's also on a mining and forestry policy. And then she was also appointed to the Clean Water Council from the Senate. And so she also has a voice at that table as well. And we just have really enjoyed working with her over the last couple years. And she has done great work for the Bernard Lakes area, supporting projects in this area as well as in the environment. And so with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Honorable Senator Carrie Ruud. Thank you.
Good morning. So good to see all of you. Well, some of you I can see. A lot of familiar faces and names out there, and it's so great to join you. And oh my gosh, the information you've already provided is just awesome. It's the boots on the ground that we talk about all the time, and the collaboration. And I have in my office here, and I don't know if you can see this, but this is the shovel from the big project on Big Pine Lake that was probably one of the most fun and projects in our area. And I have to tell you that I've enjoyed it all summer. We brought the grandkids there, and everybody's fishing there and playing in the water. And it's probably one of the most fun collaborations to see happen. And I know it took a lot of partners and a lot of time, but it was just so worth seeing that project. And I do miss meeting the bus over in Serpent Lake and hearing all the stories and having lunch, because it's always fun to have all the sidebar conversations with all of you. We are very busy at the Capitol right now. And by the way, Melissa, the website is awesome. I don't know, it's got so much information and it's so easy to navigate and look at. So thank you. I'm sure that I was a big collaboration, but it's really a very workable, nice website. So this year is the year of the Legacy Amendment. And just like you all have noticed that things are very busy because people have time on their hands. And so they're tackling projects that maybe they didn't have time to do, and they're outside. Because of, we put in place a couple years ago that we captured the sales tax from the internet. And you know, the legacy is funded through sales tax. And so we have a very healthy legacy bill this year. And so we probably have a little over $700 million in the legacy to spend this year. A lot of asks and a lot of projects, but I think we're looking at, on the clean water side, about $260 million. So we have a healthy environmental package going forward. One of the things, of course, that saddened me was the governor didn't include the soil and water conservation districts in his budget, and neither did the Clean Water Council. And I think, and I have, for the last 2 cycles, I have included the Soil and Water Conservation District funding in the clean water portion. I believe it belongs there. The first year we did a sweep and backfilled because we took $24 million. And I think, and I don't want to do that. I think that the, excuse me, the proper place for that funding is in the Clean Water Council. It's a stable source of funding. It's not something you'd have to fight for every year, out of this pocket and that pocket out of the general fund. And so I'm fighting to, I believe that we will have enough money. The ask I put in this year is $22 million. Everyone had to take a slight cut in pay this year because of the receipts, but if I can possibly bump that to $24 million, I will. We introduced that bill. And I think the money is there. I've already notified the governor's office that I'm going to fight for that, and I want it included. I think soil and water conservation districts and all that you do, we can't possibly say that we want all these projects funded and then not fund the people that implement them, and that's what y'all do. So I'm really going to fight for that funding going forward. I'm also fighting for the LCCMR, the 2020 bill. That has a big project for Baxter in it, the Whiskey Creek project, and it needs to be done. And so I'm going to ask you all to bug Senator Gizelka and tell him we want to get that done. It's a real high priority. It's, you know, the 2021 bill has already been introduced, and the 2022 RFPs have already gone out. And so we need to get that bill done. So if you want to give him a little bug in his ear, he'll hate that I did this. But anyway, it needs to get done. And it's $84 million. It's kind of like a mini bonding bill. And I know Jake talked about the AIS program. And we also have a bill in this year. We just introduced it, and it has a House companion. And we think the state AIS plan has not been updated. They put in place the plan, and then it's just kind of stagnant. So we're asking the state to upgrade that plan for by the end of this year. And then we've also put a caveat that we want it updated on a regular basis. We put a every 5-year plan in. I'm not sure that's the number, but we need for it to be constantly as we as science improves and as we find new solutions and as we have new, unfortunately, new aquatic invasive species added to the list. We need to really update that plan. So we're having a hearing on that next week, and it does not have a fiscal note, so that's good with this budgetary year. I think that it's something that we can get done. With that, if there's any questions, we'll leave time for questions. And I see Representative Heinzman. I can see you. You have your video on. So I don't know if Representative Heinzman, I'd sure cede some of my time to him if he has any comments to make. I know it's.
I sure appreciate that. Thank you, Senator.
You bet. Good to see you.
You know,
I have to tell you that we don't get to see each other. There's no staff. There's no staff here. I'm not allowed to walk over to the house and see them. I can't even give them bill jackets. I think there's a little hobbit that goes from the building to the building to give a bill jacket to each other. It's the oddest thing you've ever seen. So Zoom is what we've got. I don't think I've seen Representative Heinzman this whole session because we're not allowed to intermingle. I don't know if they have more COVID in the House than the Senate.
You know, Senator Ruud is being very kind. The Speaker in the House, Representative Hortman, it hasn't been operating in the same way as Senator Gizelka has allowed the Senate to operate. So we're locked down, and we don't have our staff at our stations. You know, in our offices, we have a really tough time. And so, Senator Ruud, you guys are operating at a lot higher level in terms of just getting stuff done. So I did want to make a comment. One of the things that I think was absolutely critical, and I thank you, Senator, for bringing this up, is the governor's recommendations as it relates to the Clean Water Council. And the Clean Water Council itself, I've served at the Clean Water Council now for a couple of years. This will be my second term on that council. And it's been really strange to see the way they've left soil and water conservation districts out of their funding recommendations. And you got to ask yourself why. And so, Senator Ruud, thank you for mentioning that. That is absolutely critical. We should be louder about that. If there ever was a funding stream, a source of revenues for the kind of work that gets done at this level, when it comes to forests and clean water, it's there. And I just have to echo that, and thank you again, Senator, for mentioning it, because it's really important. I hope everybody's watching that. And I'll quickly also mention the Whiskey Creek project and the LCCMR. Have no fear, we're going to get it done. It's going to happen. It might not happen in the time frame that we want, but Senator Ruud is absolutely right. It's coming, and we're going to get it through one way or the other. So that's the extent of my comments. Thank you for letting me mention a few things.
Well, it's kind of nice to see you, Representative, because I haven't seen you. Yeah, and you mentioned that we have the new mining and forestry committee, and that's been really interesting. We just talked about the school trust lands. We have a lot of that in Crow Wing County, and how we can enhance that. And we're looking at, we really need to look at the reforestation. It was not included in the budget, in the big bonding bill, did not have money for reforestation. It was really amazing that we would not include that, because that's so very vital for water quality, that we, you know, have good reforestation. So we're really highlighting that to the governor, that that's something that the DNR, they can't reforest and replant without a program and money. And as we go forward with the emerald ash borer issue in greater Minnesota, we are going to very definitely need to address reforestation. So lots of stuff and nothing going on, because it's very interesting to have a Zoom committee hearing. We did our first roll call vote in committee, and you know, how many times have you heard, you're on mute, you're on mute? So I think I should have a button that just says that.
Well, thank you so much, Representative Heintzman and Senator Carrie, or Senator Ruud. Is there any questions that folks have for either of these two? Again, you can unmute yourself. The unmute button is located on the left side in the corner if you would like to ask a question, or you can put it in the chat box.
And I would just say, you know, while we can't have in-person meetings, and I'm sure I can speak for Representative Heintzman too, and I say, please contact us. We love to get your emails. We love to get your input. If there's something you see that we need to have put in front of us, please get a hold of us. You know, not being able to have the small sidebar conversations is really limiting. And when we make public policy, we need public input. So please keep contacting us and talking to us about the issues that we need to have in front of us.
And I guess I just also want to just thank you guys for your work with this Whiskey Creek project. So just for the folks that are not familiar with that, in the city of Baxter, there is a parcel of land across from Super One that is owned by Good Samaritan. And the Mississippi Headwaters Board in the city of Baxter wrote a LCCMR proposal, I think it was last year, and we are looking for sort of the funding to purchase that piece from Good Samaritan. And we recently were awarded a Clean Water Fund grant from the Board of Water and Soil Resources to do the actual project. And that project is can sort of treat all of the 371, 210 corridor. And currently, actually Fleet Farm, underneath Fleet Farm is kind of the start of that Whiskey Creek, basically goes under Fleet Farm and then through that property and then through the Arboretum. And so that area is a huge sort of confluence of stormwater runoff. And so it's been, I would say Jim Chamberlain was working on this project probably 15 years ago. So it's been a long time in the works of many people kind of coming together. And so we're really grateful for Josh's and Carrie's support of this project. And we look forward to seeing that bill get passed. So thank you so much. It's always great to hear from both of you guys. We appreciate the work that you guys do and the support you have. And we look forward to talking to you soon too. We'll be down, hopefully chatting with you guys as a part of the Association of Soil and Water Conservation Districts.
Fun, and it's a lot warmer down here. You know, we got to 0, you guys. So come on down south.
That is correct. I think even 50 next week, maybe you guys might be hitting. So yeah. With that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our next speaker. I do have a comment here quick before we move on. So I just have a comment from Senator Barrows. Thank you, Senator Ruud and Representative Heintzman, for your behalf of Crow Wing County and the environment. You are well aware to remain in living in travel area of choice in Minnesota. We have to continue to invest, and your efforts are vital and appreciated. So
thank you.
We did get one comment.
Melissa, one quick thing. I'm a county commissioner, not a senator. So out of respect for Senator Ruud, I want to make sure that my appropriate title is aware.
Commissioner,
Yeah,
you are
sorry.
an incredibly wise man. Those are lines we're very careful not to cross. So representatives and senators and all the other titles out there, we try to get them right as often as possible. So Melissa, that actually was kind of fun. So yeah, good job, Commissioner. It's good to keep things straight. So
Thank you.
Thank you. Y'all have a great day.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Barrows. So with that, I'll go ahead and introduce Dan Steward. So many of you guys are familiar with Dan Steward. He's been working in the area for, he's been working for Bowser for over 37 years, I think in the area for at least 20 to 30 years. So he's with the Border Water and Soil Resources. He's a Watershed Private Forest Management Program Coordinator. And I guess I've just really appreciated working with Dan for his vision and his ability to sort of tell complex stories through different diagrams. And he's really been a great mentor to myself and many others. And with that, he's going to give a little presentation on kind of what has been happening at in this region.
Yep. Can you hear us now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Thanks, Melissa, for the opportunity to make a few comments. And I'm going to try to do as good a job as Jake did at staying on time. He was outstanding. So that's a tough act to follow, Jake. Thank you. So I think you guys know, for the most part, that I've worked up here for about 34 years in the area. And I've been extremely blessed to have landed in this part of the geography. And I am a geographer, so I'm not a forester. I'm not a wildlife trained person or anything like that. I'm a geographer, so I try to make sense of the world through geography. And it's been my great fortune and pleasure to work in what I call the Fertile Triangle. And that is Cass, Aiken, and Crow Wing counties. Those three counties put together have been just a great bunch to work with over the years. And the SWCDs and counties alike, and they've been willing to try things. And without that kind of courage and leadership from local government, you can have all the ideas in the world, they aren't going to do much good unless we can try to put them on the ground. So first of all, hats off to the counties in the area and for what great clients they've been to work with. Okay, so quickly here, trying to keep moving. This just reminds us what we already know, really, that Minnesota is a very diverse state. We've got 3 major biomes here, as you can see. And we're in the, thank goodness, in what you might call protection country. And by that, we mean where water quality is still, for the most part, good. And so we're trying to protect water quality and keep it from slipping more than anything else. This slide, I promised to only do this once with a slide this complicated, but this has really been kind of the story, one way of putting it, kind of the story of my career over the last 35 years, all wrapped in here. If we start at the top center with the Clean Water Act in 1971.
Dan, sorry, this is Sheila, just interrupt.
Did a lot of.
We can't quite see the large.
I'm sorry?
We can't see the large version of the slides, I think. If you can click, or there you go. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Yep.
So at the top center, the Clean Water Act, it did a lot of good for the country's waters, no doubt, but it was focused on impaired waters and not protection waters like north central Minnesota has. And so we recognized a long time ago that this was an issue. And so we needed to develop methodologies so that there would be a way to fund projects up here. And so we started working with large lake screening in 2008, and that was Crow Wing and Aiken and Cass counties again were the first 3 counties to work with us on that project. And we started developing atlases of about 20 pages for each lake and summarizing their situation in general. And then DNR came along with this tremendous fisheries research on making the connection between forested watersheds and lakes that have relatively low levels of phosphorus or enrichment. That was extremely important, and where our 75% watershed protection goal came from. And then Crow Wing County Water Plan was the first water plan in the state to put this 75% goal into a water plan and build some local capacity around it and formalize it as a goal. And then we came up with a process as well, or a methodology for targeting parcels that we call RAC. And it's just a simple scoring method for helping get funding. So then as we started to get better methodologies, you can see off to the left in Lessard projects that have been funded in the north central part of the state, and then clean water projects on the right-hand side of the screen. And then along came One Water, One Plan, moving vertically downward now. This state's major initiative to plan all the watersheds in the state. And so then we plugged into that One Water, One Plan process, priority lakes and watersheds, and some of the methodologies we developed over the last 10 years. And it all boils down to giving a better platform to landowners who choose how much conservation might be right for them on their particular property. And so that's a kind of a whirlwind. If you add, I haven't added up the numbers, but with ACUB and all of Todd's work there with the Camp Ripley Buffer Program, you can see the federal dollars there really increase it, but let's see, 18, 27, 37, 87. We're awful close to $100 million now, at least, that have been invested up here in protection projects. This map just shows, again, the DNR research on the left, and you can see the light green. We call that the sweet spot. That's the part of the state where you have lakes that are still high quality, but are not at 75% protected forests. The red and yellow areas have experienced, they have too much open watershed. It might be developed, it might be ag land or cultivated or whatever, but those areas have experienced a lot of nutrient enrichment. Whereas the green, and then the dark green up in the boundary waters area, you can see those lakes are already adequately protected watersheds. So the light green in the whole state is the north central, and it just happens to be the headwaters of the Mississippi River. And that also gives us a great connection down to the Twin Cities, as it's a large chunk of their daily drinking water supply. On the right-hand side now, this is just a map. It's very busy, but it shows the projects we started with Camp Ripley. You can see that right in the center there, that pink and green circle where Todd's still leading that charge very effectively. And then on all the wild rice lakes are shown in purple. And so that's received a bunch of money and a total world unique resource here in Minnesota, wild rice lakes. And then the work on the Mississippi mainstream, 400 miles that are in that Mississippi River, swinging through the big question mark, you might say. That's the shape. 15 million into the Mississippi River, very successful. And thanks to the Headwaters Board and Paul and Tim, their great work there. And then we started doing easements on the Pine River, the Crow Wing River, and the Rum River. Those are with Clean Water Fund dollars. And so if you look at this comprehensively, it starts to look almost like a strategy taken collectively, even though it was built in piecemeal fashion. Collectively, it's like an upper Mississippi strategy to protect the whole upper basin. It's a good start on it at least, but there's one thing missing. Maybe there's more than one, but there's at least one thing missing, and that would be lakes. And so at a recent, it was actually 2019, we made a presentation to the Lessard Outdoor Heritage Committee, and they liked our methodology a lot, but they said we have one concern with it. We're concerned about getting overrun by 40 or 50 One Water, One Plan proposals. You know, so it's good stuff, but we don't want to get overrun. And so I understand that totally. And so we just started thinking, is there a way we could narrow this down and so they wouldn't be overrun, but we could find a way to streamline and simplify the proposals that might come to them. And so we just started looking at this, and I owe a big thank you to Mitch Brinks for his help with this data crunch. But we looked at lakes that are, and first of all, there's 8,800 lakes in the upper Mississippi basin. And I don't know if there's another place in the United States that could say that. But if you look at lakes over 400 acres for the start, so the larger lakes, and then you look at the ones that are not, number two, that are not at 75% protected forests yet, okay? And that are not impaired. There's a few in lakes that are impaired, not very many. And we're not talking about shallow wildlife lakes either. And then if you apply some risk, that is maybe our priority should be at the intersection of risk to the resource and quality, having a quality resource. So where you've got a very high quality resource and risk, that's a good place, I think, to get a maximum return on public investment, or ROI as it's called. So we have run the lakes through these 5 screens or criteria, and 114 of those lakes are what we're talking about. They're over 400 acres and they're not at 75% yet. And you can see the lakes in the purple circle at the top. Those are examples of the kind of lakes we're talking about. These are some of the best lakes in the United States. And so now if you look at the bottom of the screen there, how many of those 114 lakes are also identified as priority lakes in One Water, One plans where they've been approved? In other words, bringing in the local aspect, local government, and their priorities. Well, then you can see 26 of those 114 lakes are already identified as priorities in One Water, One plan. So you could argue we have a sense of state priorities maybe, and a sense of local priorities coming together, and all in the upper Mississippi basin. So the crosshatched areas, watersheds on the map at the right, are the 6 One Water, One plans that have been approved and are completed. And so then the purple lakes represent the 26 that are priorities, or double hits, you might say, are priorities in both categories. And so we've really winnowed down 8,800 lakes in this case to 26 as a good starting point. And again, these are closely aligned with DNR fisheries research and local water plans. So carrying that on with Mitch's GIS skills and crunching the data a little further, of the 114 lakes, how many acres short of 75% would the 114 lakes be? And it's about 206,000 acres. But again, only 26 of those lakes at this time are priorities in local water plans. So how many acres are they short? 50,000 acres. So about 2,000 acres per lake. So we're starting to get these numbers down to something we might be able to get our arms around here. And so then if you looked at the cost of helping move those to 75%, and you split it halfway between the Sustainable Forest Incentives Act program, which are covenants with willing landowners, and conservation easements, 25,000 acres each, or 25,000 acres total, that would come to $38 million. Okay. We looked at the two, as Senator Ruud mentioned, the two funds possibly, and I know there has been comments about possibly of the funds working together on designated projects. That would put it in somewhere in the neighborhood of 19 million from each fund. This is not a formal proposal. This is just a straw man for discussion purposes. I should have mentioned that at the start. It's not a formal proposal. It's just showing what GIS can do with the local water plans invested to break down big complex issues, help us protect our lakes locally, our forests, so they can continue to be managed for timber, while also at the same time protecting the Mississippi's drinking water supply. And so I think I'm at 12 minutes. So with that, I'll conclude my comments. Again, lakes are on our license plate. We're very proud of them. We have to paint them on the side of buildings sometimes because the tourists get confused and don't know how to get to their favorite lake. And we all love spending time at the water, whether that's fishing or recreating or whatever it might be. And we've been fortunate to live in the best lake country in the lower 48 states. and we still have an opportunity to protect it. So with that, I'll conclude my comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan. And I guess I just want to take the time to recognize Dan. He is starting a new journey in March. So he will be retiring in a little bit here. And we're just so grateful for the work that you've done and the support you have provided to local government units and for all the work that you have done. So thank you. And with that, I would take any questions from folks. If you have a question, you can go ahead and unmute yourself. Otherwise, you can type a question in the chat box.
Melissa?
Yes, go
I
ahead.
have my hand up. I don't know if that was the right thing to do, but I did have a few comments quickly, if that's okay.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Dan personally, and then of course in this format publicly. When I first saw this presentation a number of years ago, I was really taken aback. I'm, as you know, Melissa, a grouchy son of a gun conservative on a lot of issues, and it was tough for me to absorb this and to see the advantage in a different sort of a light. And I just want to thank Dan again for bringing me into some of these issues as well as you have. And also want to point out, I think we're going to see Dan in another capacity at another level, continuing this conversation. And that's, of course, if I have anything to do with it. And I'm just wanting to acknowledge his service and the impact that he has had from a little DNR office in Brainerd, Minnesota, across the entire state. And it'll probably have impact around the entire country as time goes on. And amazing to have been a part of that and to see that and have a friendship with you, Dan. Just wanted to thank you and excited for what might be down the road in the future. Thank you for letting me share a few comments, Melissa.
Thanks so much, Representative Heinzman. The pleasure's been all mine. It's been a great ride. I hope to not just go off a cliff. I love this work and I hope to stay involved. But really, you know, it's about a team. And we've got a heck of a team here in north central Minnesota. And we like to move, we call it moving the chains, you know. It might not be a touchdown, but it's a first down, by golly. One at a time, right?
One at a time. All right, I gotta head out. Thank you.
All righty. Well, thank you so much, Dan. And we appreciate the work that you've done. So I will go ahead and we're going to go ahead and switch gears a little bit. So I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully you guys can all see that. Oops, I got to hit the present mode. Okay. So this event really started again. I want to give Diane Jacobson, one of our board members, credit. So about 3 years ago, she said, we need to figure out a way to let people know what we're doing. You guys are doing such great work and we need to figure out a way to do it. And so if you don't like this event, I guess you can blame Diane. But if you do like this event, this is all credit to her. So this is our way of kind of just trying to share our stories and tell people what we do. For the conservation. So I'm just going to take a quick minute to introduce our staff. So we have Sheila Bolt, Clayton Link, Tasha Lauer, myself, Melissa Barrick, Adam Molesky, and then Bethany Chaplin, who couldn't join us today. But Sheila will kind of talk about some of the work that she has been doing for the Soil and Water Conservation District. So again, I'm a mom of 3 boys, and one of the things I think often when I had twin babies is that parenting alone is a very scary journey, and that you need a whole village of people to come along with you to be able to have your kids like thrive. And I feel like the same thing for conservation. We cannot do this alone. It is not us alone. It's in partnership. And it's always amazing to me when we do ask our partners for things and the things that they provide back. So thank you to all our different partners. And we just appreciate all the things that each partner brings to the table. So this is just a slide showing kind of the last 5 years of the different contracts and grants the Crow Wing Soil and Water Conservation District has received. So if you can see where my arrow is, this is 2020. And again, this is through partnership. So this red is really the state and contracts that we received in the beginning for that year. So it doesn't mean that we spent all that money in this year, it just means that we had a signed contract and agreement for this amount of money. So some of the bigger ones that we received in 2020 was the Pine River 1 Watershed 1 Plan Protection Funds, which is $482,000, and that's for Cass, Crow Wing County and both soil and water conservation districts. And then we also received $2.2 million for Lessard Sam's Outdoor Heritage Council for Pine River and Leech watershed easements. And then the yellow is the local contribution. So we'll talk a little bit about both of these projects, but the city of Crosslake invested $85,000 into a stormwater project. And then the Big Pine Lake Association contributes $75,000 to the Pine Lake Dam project. And then we also have the county contribution, which includes the contributions they give to the Soil and Water Conservation District. So that seems like a lot of money that we bring to the table, but we have very limited funds that we can actually use for our operations. So if you take the 2020 funds, this about $3.89 million goes to projects. And so specific projects, specific items, and a lot of that money we cannot touch. So out of that, we have about 4% that can cover just our general operationals. And so that's why we're so grateful to Senator Ruud for her effort to work on the funding for soil and water conservation districts, because that's really vital to us being able to have staff and keep our operations going. And again, one thing about soil and water conservation districts is we are founded in Minnesota State Statute 103C. And we also, if you look at the whole state of Minnesota, 78% is in private ownership. And so we really are the boots on the ground for these private landowners, and we work through partnership. So with that, I'm going to quickly talk about the Pine River Fish Passage Project. Again, so this project, this is the Crow Wing County owns this dam. It was called the Rock Dam, and it was failing and had lots of issues, and that was affecting Big Pine Lake elevation. And so we received a large Lessard Sam's Outdoor Heritage Council to put in some I guess you would call them weirs, rock riffle structures, to be able to allow the fish to pass this dam, and then also be able to kind of keep the Big Pine Lake level at the correct elevation. So this picture in the corner is before drone footage from the county sheriff office. This picture up here is drone footage of them during the construction. You can see at the site, we got Rob Hall and Tim Bray and Beth Hippert and Bill Westerberg, our engineer, at the end of the project. And then this is drone footage afterwards. And so this was a great project. We have a YouTube video that shows the whole project. I'm not going to show it because I have limited time, but we're really grateful to all the partners, and this was a huge success. I'm quickly going to highlight just a few things. So in 2020, I submitted 5 grant applications for $3 million. Like Jake mentioned, we went through the county strategic planning process, which was very successful. We did some inventory for the Whitefish Lake for stormwater, and then we hosted a workshop with the county to train staff on stormwater. And then one of the big things that we focused on was these lake plans. So we worked on 32 lake plans for the Pine River watershed, and we took the Crow Wing County's model for impervious surface that they did, and we updated that. So we have that for all these 32 lakes. And then we also worked with the assessor's office to be able to get better data on which properties actually have septics and on wells. And so now we have these reports that lake associations can use to help them do practices on the land that relates to this bigger watershed project. And then I just also want to say thank you to the county. We were able to receive a vehicle from the sheriff's office, and so we're grateful for that. Will help this next field season. And then also to the IT department. Obviously with COVID this last year, they really supported us in trying to get everyone be able to work remotely, and have been great to help us out during that transition. And we're very grateful to have that support. So with that, I'm gonna talk for Tasha because she has kind of a cold. And so Tasha Lauer, so a lot, she's waving her hand. So she does a lot of our grant management. So she's really behind the scenes, kind of making all of us look good. And so she has done all the reporting for 21 grants. And then also does all of the sort of expenses, timesheets, payrolls, and ensures that we're following all the policies that the state has set up for these different grants. And so one of the things that I like to think about is the reason why people don't apply for grants is because they're hard. There's no way around it, how much time and effort it takes to track all this stuff and manage it and make sure that you're accounting the right thing, and each grant is different. And so we just really appreciate that she's organized and helps us manage this. Then the other thing I think Senator Ruud mentioned is we did get a new website. So Tasha was helpful in trying to get that set up. And then we also launched a new shop page for our tree sale. And then she manages some other partners' website as well as the Pine River Watershed Alliance. And then we've been doing native photo contests for a few years now. And so she helps with gathering all those photos. And then these were the winners of the different photos. And so thank you for all those people that submitted those photos. And with that, I think I'll turn it over to Sheila.
Hi, everyone. All right, Sheila Bolt. I am the Soil and Water District Outreach Technician, and I just put a few photos here this year. There were a lot less photos this past year working virtual. That just is how it is. We did a lot of water sampling. As you can see there, that's some of our equipment, and that is Stony Brook Creek, right in Crow Wing. And then I did do a few landowner site visits last spring, some project site visits, and then a little bit of outreach. This was the Back to Basics event there with the table presentation was the last in-person event that I've done last February. And then if you click, I think again, Melissa, a couple things might show up. We're also part of the volunteer coordinators of Crow Wing County. I manage a lot of our social media and some of our different press releases, both with the Soil and Water District and, as you see in the bottom right, the Pine River Watershed Alliance, nonprofit organization also. We are paid by them to help them with promotion. And then just a few things working remotely in 2020. It was a blessing in disguise. There's a picture of, I had to be at Children's Hospital last summer for my son for over a week, and it was beautiful to be able to still work while being there with him. I was still last year working on easements some. So thankful for Adam, and I have to give a shout out. Today is his 1-year anniversary. We're so happy to have him now on board, helping Pine River Watershed Alliance, the MPCA, helping with some civic engagement this past year. Like I said, this is the Surface Water Assessment Grant, SWAG, lake and stream sampling. And then as well, last summer, I and a couple of our staff helped manage 2 interns, helping with the sampling. Chloride sampling I did last spring, and then I also trained in Alicia and Bethany, who couldn't be here, but I will chat about her last year. And then Minnesota Green Corps member supervisor, like I said, Bethany has been wonderful. Virtual presentations for outreach, like I mentioned, Back to Basics is actually next week. That's a Pine River event that is online this year, virtual presentations. Lakewood interview, and then different trainings that I've had this past year and very thankful for. I just wanted to note this was our last Soil and Water District in-person event was the tree sale open house last year that everybody pitched in for. I found some pictures of that last year. Reminisce about being together with people. If you want to move on, I think that Beth, all right. And this is Bethany Chaplin. She has been wonderful Minnesota Green Corps member in our office. This is just such a cool partnership because she's serving from September of 2020 through August of this year. She has been helping with a lot of local education, including here listed Crosslake online classroom recorded presentations. The great part is about virtual recording of these presentations. We can share them in the future with different organizations and schools. So you can see here she listed what is a watershed and some of the other, what is a watershed, best management practices in Minnesota in your backyard. And then she's been also helping with a number of other conservation duties in our office, including helping with Brainerd, Mississippi Watershed GIS story map that is live on our website, GIS impervious surface mapping project with Mitch Brinks, Breezy Point Rain Garden restoration investigation, our tree sale, of course, coming up. And then she has been able to attend a lot of different trainings that the Minnesota Green Corps allots her a certain time to attend. And here's a little bit more detail about the chloride monitoring that she has been both helping to do the actual sampling for the chloride and arranging, going out on volunteers' boats on these different lakes you can see here on the map, as well as organizing the data and education to, she's done press releases, education to the, like I said, the schools, different groups. There's some listed there. And then one other thing that she has been doing, we actually have winter salt watch kits this year, promoting the Isaac Walton League of America. So that's been a great way to get citizens hands-on actual sampling for chlorides in our area. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
And then Adam will go ahead and talk a little bit about the easement programs he's been working.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Adam Molesky. What a way to give your annual report on your 1-year anniversary. So I'm kind of in charge of the easement program, as well as I do other things like site visits. I'm getting more into the stormwater stuff, the Pine River One Water Show and Plan. Our easement process, even with COVID, we still kept pushing through. It becomes a little more difficult when landowners can't come into the office and sign papers or things in the mailbox for a little bit. But we kept pushing right through. Kind of a status update for this year. We got 11 new easements kind of spread between these 5 programs that you see. And we gave out about $1.1 million to landowners this year. So that's very exciting. The easement interest was very high. One example would be the Rum River. We have 1 application, but we got a ton of interest in that program, and we pretty much spent $1 million in 1 meeting. So I think that really speaks to the interest of landowners in this area. We have about 16 applications going through the process. We finished about 8 of them this year. Even through COVID, we still kept pushing right along with Bowser. Mel, if you want to go on to the next slide. So we do have some new easement programs coming to this area that I'd like to just briefly mention. One of them is the Pine and Leech Watershed easement program and acquisition. It's focusing on those high priority lakes. So that is one to look forward to. It's us, so Crowing, Cass, and then Hubbard. So we do easements for Crowing and Cass, so we'll be working on that. Another one is a pilot. It's called the Rim Working Lands. It's going to be focusing on grazing. So there's been kind of a shortage of easement programs focusing on that pasture, which does have an importance. And Todd Holman with the Nature Conservancy has been a big driver of that, getting something that's working. So this is something new, kind of working lands. So I'm excited to take over, to be working on that. It's with the Pine River Watershed, the Crowing Watershed, and the Red Eye, so a pretty big area. And it's a pilot project, so it's roughly about $1 million, and it's going to be working with producers to do sustainable grazing, having a grazing plan on their property. And so we're very excited about that program. So thanks to Nature Conservancy and Bowser and all the partners of getting that going. Another big thing that I did this summer was site inspections. So all the projects that we do with landowners, we monitor them for 10 years to check on their successes, to see if they need any maintenance, things like that. And these are some of the examples of site inspections that I did and how their projects were turning out. This one was a rain garden capturing runoff off that shed. So it looked very nice, had a lot of blooming plants. The butterflies and bees were hitting that like crazy. This is an example of a shoreline buffer that was done. And you can see all the nice vegetation coming in there, pretty colors. And then we also monitor our forestry projects, so our tree plantings, things like that. So I was in charge of making sure that things were growing nice and looking nice and doing that. So I monitored about 63 projects this summer. So.
Thank you, Adam. And then we'll go ahead and have Clayton give his presentation. And unfortunately, this is Clayton's last day for the Soil and Water Conservation District. He's going to move on to a different position, but we're thankful that he's able to be here today. And thank you for the work that you've done this last year as well. So go ahead, Clayton.
Thank you. If you want to go to the next slide. Oh, there you go. So this year was a little different for us. You know, with COVID, I guess it's different for everybody, but forestry projects, a lot of the projects were done, you know, right away in the spring, kind of before COVID got too bad or before a lot of the restrictions were set. So we were able to get a lot of stuff done this spring. But we got 14 new plans done this year for just under 3,000 acres. And BMPs, we got 15 of them done, you know, finalized this spring for 108 acres. And the amount of funding that we contributed to landowners between those two things was just over $44,000. So between covering the cost of plans or writing plans and cost sharing those BMPs at 50%, we contributed just over $44,000. On the bottom right there, you'll see our two forestry grants that we typically try to work on or focused in those areas the most. The one in the red area there is focused around Camp Ripley and trying to get the Sentinel landscape more protected and properly managed. All of the boxes in yellow are different forest stewardship plans or people that have enrolled into this grant. The one in kind of the turquoisey blue, that's a little bit newer grant, but that's kind of in cooperation with the Aiken SWCD as well. Not as much money in that one for forestry stuff. It focuses a little heavier on the easement side of things, but forestry stuff nonetheless. Also, part of my responsibilities are doing site visits for landowners. It typically ranges from shoreline visits to stormwater visits to just kind of general, you know, native buffer planting type questions. We work in cooperation a lot with lake associations and different organizations. Crow Wing County, for instance, the DNR has recommended us for a few different things to do site visits. We've done several projects. You can see on the bottom left there, we've helped Camp Knutson on the whitefish side of the little peninsula that they have there. Worked with WPOA on that one as well. On the right, you'll see a picture on North Long of a restoration project that we helped fund. You can see the bank is eroding pretty heavily in that top picture, and you know, wrapping it with erosion control fabric and core logs and things like that, and then the plantings within it. That project's fairly new, so we haven't seen how well it's flourished yet, but expecting good things from that one. And like I said before, it's just, you know, given the circumstances of COVID, it was a crazy busy year for site visits. We did over 40 site visits just for shoreline and stormwater type practices. And with that, we've paid out just under $42,000 of cost share or that we have in contracts to have projects completed. So between completed projects and new contracts for 2020, you know, $42,000. It's quite a bit going back to the landowners. So pretty excited about that.
All right, thank you, Clayton. So we're gonna move on to the city of Crosslake. So we've been working with the city of Crosslake and the county highway department to look at sort of CSA 66. So it runs kind of from County Road 3 all the way up to County Road 1. And we started working, I think probably 2013, on looking at big trout first, and then the Crosslakers, a group of citizens interested in water quality, really brought this project forward with their help in collaboration with the county and the city. We received $475,000 from the Board of Water and Soil Resources Clean Water Fund to implement this project. And so I'm going to go ahead and, oops, I didn't realize my screen was still sharing. Let Dave Reese talk about the project. He is the engineer that was involved in the project. We also do have on the line is Mike Lyonais from the Crosslakes. He's the city administrator, as well as John Forney, who was a part of the Crosslake group, and then also Rob Hall, who is the county highway assistant engineer. So I'll go ahead and let Dave share his screen and let him walk through that project from their perspective.
Okay, thanks, Melissa. I'll get the right one here, this one. There we go. Okay, can you see our first slide?
Yes, we can.
All right. Thanks, Melissa, and thanks for the opportunity to present this project. I'm Dave Reese with Widseth, and I've got Tony Pohl here with me as well. Tony and I kind of tag teamed this project from the engineering aspect. I was involved with the Crosslake Water Quality Committee kind of in the beginning stages of the project and into the design a bit. And then Tony picked up with the design, prepared plans, and carried it through the construction. So very thankful to be a project partner with all of the folks involved in this project. So the objectives were to look at removing direct storm sewer discharges to the Loon Island Lake system that were directed there from city and county storm facilities, and to protect the lake resource from that direct discharge. And from that, we're protecting the fishery, and from that, property values and the local economy. Okay, so I just wanted to quickly show the project partners here. There are many partners that made the project successful, beginning with project development with Crosslake Water Quality Committee, members from SWCD, Crow Wing County Highway Department, Crosslake Public Works, and area citizens. The funding partners that help finance the cost of the study initially and evaluate feasible alternatives, and determining appropriate solutions and constructing the improvements. So just to give a little background on this project area, the watershed area itself is pretty extensive. Contributing watersheds were identified in the study. It's about 43 acres, includes runoff entering the highway storm catchments from residential and commercial properties and the streets and highways in these areas. The pollutants that enter this system include natural and man-made materials, sand and sediments, fertilizers and other nutrients, including phosphorus. And so those are the issues. The solutions that we looked at during the study phase included modeling the program here based on the water quality sampling that was done in assistance from the SWCD folks, looking at the precipitation data, estimating the runoff volumes, and analysis using industry models. Those models include the program for predicting particle passage through pits, puddles, and ponds, that's P8, and Shazam, that was developed by Bar Engineering and is available for public use for sizing hydrodynamic separators and manholes. So these devices consist of precast structures that remove sediment and floatables. The pond provides additional removal through settling and natural biological reduction of nutrients. Also, the pond level is really attenuated with the local groundwater elevation. So overflow from the pond into the outfall control structure will probably happen very seldom. It's really being handled through the groundwater system and further filtering through the soil as it makes its way to Loon Lake. And this is kind of where Tony came in toward the tail end of the feasibility study. So I'm gonna let him talk.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay from over here? If not, just let me know.
Yes, we can.
Great. Yeah, so I'm Tony Paul with Widseth, be the designer, project engineer for this. I'm just gonna back it up a little bit. Like Dave was saying, I got brought on during the design phase, working with the community. But essentially we had 2 outlets that were going into Loon Lake that were untreated, and the objective was to treat these 2 outlets. There was obviously some site constraints. The storm sewer in this area is very deep, 10 feet deep. And then we also have very high groundwater, very limited space. Like the south outlet over here, you got a steep bank going down to the lake on one side of the road, and you got an uphill bank going the other way. And then also these are big systems, a lot of roadway, pretty high flow rate. So it was pretty challenging for sure. But with that, we kind of came up with 2 options that would be suitable and pretty much dictated from the constraints. And one was a wet sedimentation basin for treatment due to the high groundwater. And the other one would be a hydrodynamic separator, Dave mentioned before. The hydrodynamic separator basically just takes the energy of the water coming in and circulates it in these structures, and then settles out debris and sediment. So those are kind of the 2 options we're looking at. One was a pretty big, just a pond system where we take everything from the SAW 66 drainage and send it to these 2 ponds. That was very good for treatment, but really expensive due to all the the roadway we'd have to tear up to get the infrastructure in, and then also the amount of land. So that was kind of one extreme. The other extreme we looked at was just putting separators in. Nice part is super small footprint, but just was not quite getting all the treatment or benefits from a wet sedimentation basin. So what we ended up doing is looking at like a hybrid system, or a combination of the two, actually. So I think you can see my mouse here. So on the south outlet, the most feasible thing there was just to put a separator in, and then the other big part of the drainage area was further to the north, where we did a combination of a smaller wet sedimentation basin with 2 other separators. The idea here is these 2 separators will take out the heavy debris and sediment, and then discharge into the pond or basin, and then that'll do like the finishing or the finer particles. So that's what we kind of determined and started to move forward into the grant application with this design. We had to work with the property owner too. We, as you can see in the top left, that was kind of the rendering. So they could have some expectations of what this might look like. So that's kind of, we went forward with this, the grant application, kind of concluded the study. And then at that point, we were in design. After we were successful with the grant, we decided to do a design bid build project delivery. We utilized our survey environmental staff along with civil engineering to put this project together. Detailed plans and specifications are needed to publicly bid this. We also had to work with Contech, who is the manufacturer of the separators, to nail down the details on the builds of them. So like I said, we sent it out to bid, and we received 4 bids, 4 different contractors, and Chantel Excavating was the lowest bid. And luckily he had a lot of experience in putting separators in on different projects, and I believe even maybe just down the road on this CSA 66. So that was great. He's a local contractor, had experience, but boy oh boy did he have his hands full on this project for sure. As you can see in this aerial, there's a lot of coordination going on putting this separator in. Crane, he had a crane on site, and then you also have semis coming in and out, dropping these structures off, and then all at the same time, we're maintaining 1 lane of traffic. And and then as you can see, all the BMPs are in place to protect the lake during construction. So this is that south outlet. The structure is almost 20 feet deep, and 8 feet of that is almost below the lake level. So it was quite a challenge. Major dewatering efforts. Overall the project took several months, but that was mainly due to just the dewatering challenges the contractor had. But most of the work was done in a few weeks. And as soon as he got going, things went really well. He got all 3 of the separators in 1 day, and then he had a few weeks of excavating for the pond and storm sewer installation and things like that. And yeah, so this is what the project looked like after Chantel Excavating finished it. You can tell the highway was restored. You can never tell that there was a 20-foot deep hole there and a big open cut. And then around the pond, we provided some landscaping for buffering and a bunch of other erosion control measures to develop a permanent cover. So with that, just wanted to say, thanks again for this opportunity and this project, and maybe we can do some other in the future.
Are there any questions for Dave? Otherwise, too, we could let either Mike or John or Rob also comment if you guys didn't have anything else. I also just wanted to comment too is that the city invested a fair amount of money first to purchase this land from Manhattan Beach Lodge, I believe. And then also the county contributed $50,000 to this project. So I think that was a great way to kind of be able to meet the match requirement for this Border Water and Soil Resources Clean Water Fund grant, but also just a great partnership between the county and the city. So maybe if Mike or Rob or John, if you want to comment on the project, you can unmute yourself.
Melissa, this is Mike.
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, great. No, the only comment I have to make on it is, the reason this project was successful is because we had great partners to make that happen. Good pictures provided by WSN or Widseth, so that's really good. But if you've never been to that area, you really don't get an appreciation for the different elevations that the engineers had to work with until you've driven through there after it rains. There's a lot of water that comes into that area, and it all ends up in that corner, and it's got to go somewhere. And for those of you that are familiar with the whitefish chain of lakes, Loon Lake is one of the lakes on the top, and everything that drains into Loon Lake ends up in St. Paul eventually. And St. Paul takes about 60% of its drinking water out of the river. So it takes a while for it to get there, but everything that drops into Loon Lake that comes off of that intersection ends up in St. Paul at one point in time. But it was a long project. We did have some dewatering issues, but we had some pretty significant rainfall that contributed to that. And so we're all waiting for it to green up and see what it looks like next spring. This was the second project along that corridor. For those of you familiar with it, there's one further north on 66, right on Trout Lake. We're working on another one with Melissa to reroute some storm sewers from County Road 16, basically to the Crosslake City Hall. And then we're in the early stages of a third project to complete that corridor. So lots of good things happening there. And anyone who knows anything about Crosslake and the whitefish chain, the Crosslake chain, knows that the reason people come here is because of the water. And that's what we're really all trying to protect. So thank you everyone that participated in that project.
Thank you, Mike. John, do you want to say any comments quick?
Well, I think, yes, thank you. The success of this I think goes back to 2016 when they had a series of community meetings, and the residents, both full-time and seasonal, expressed their goals of where they wanted to go and so on. And I think it's a recognition of the fact that the lakes are really the economic engine, and they are also central to a way of life for people up there. And for years, the have been going directly into the lakes. So when plans like One Watershed, One Plan become available, it starts to focus energies to do these types of things. And we were fortunate to have a number of wonderful partners, Soil and Water being very key to all of that. And we were able to secure funding in large part through grants, which makes this whole thing possible. And we hope to continue and get the entire stretch of 66 dealt with.
Thank you, John. Rob, are you still on? Do you want to have any last comments?
Yeah, just a couple quick comments. Can you hear me all right?
I can, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I do have to start by saying it was a great partnership. in spite of, not because of any allegiance to the Green Bay Packers. I just want to get that out of the way. The reason projects like this are important to us, no one looks at a highway department or a public works department as being the environmental, steward leader. Quite often we're looked at the other way. So when these partnerships can come along and we can be a part of it, that's really good. This project, as an example, the county road here was constructed in about 40 years ago. So when you build a house, we kind of look at that as the same as building a road. The foundation, what makes it up, maybe it's good for 50, 75 years. You just have to replace those shingles about every 20 years, and you hope what's underneath there is working fine and functioning. In a case like this, the storm sewer system was working fine and functioning, but how it was installed and allowed to outlet 40 years ago is a little different than today. And it's not real popular all the time to, dig up an entire road to change that system. So these partnerships and these grants where we can be part of the BMPs or get them installed, when you're part of the problem, you can be part of the solution. So we're very appreciative of that partnership, and that, this solves issues not just from water quality, but even from perception. We don't like to get called once a month and say, why in the world did you outlet your storm sewer right to a chain of lakes? So can't speak for what happened 40 years ago, and undoubtedly in 40 years someone will drive their hovercraft by and think, what were they thinking in 2020? But you do the best with what you have the knowledge of at the time you're doing it. So just thanks to everyone involved, and looking forward to some future projects like this.
Yeah, and I guess I would echo what Rob said is, this road was built a long time ago, and, just from the experience that I've had is that I don't think that this is necessarily, at that time, that's what we did. So I don't think it's necessarily anyone's fault, but I think the idea of us coming together to solve the solution is, I think the great thing about these partnerships. So, so thank you, everybody, and for this. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Clayton to introduce the next landowner. But before I do that, I just want to also note that the University of Minnesota Regional Sustainable Development Partnership was the one that originally kind of provided the funding for us to look at that first project. And that has kind of spurred us to move farther down this series of road. And so we are grateful for that partnership that kind of started this. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Clayton. And then if Dave, if you could stop sharing your screen, that would be great. And then Clayton can introduce one of the landowners that he worked with this last year.
Yeah, so the landowner that I had, kind of represent what kind of projects we do and that sort of thing is Stan Musielewicz. He's has some land over by Cushing, often referred to as Stan the Man. He goes above and beyond what your typical landowner does for forestry management on their own property. So I think he's, kind of a prime example of what we would like to see in landowners, and I guess I'll let him talk a little more about what he's done and kind of what his plans are on his property. And Stan, if you can, I share your screen there and present your slides there if you have them ready.
I wasn't going to jump right into this. Where am I? I know. Well, I am Stanley Musielewicz from Little Falls, Minnesota, and I live right on Highway 10, right out of the town of Little Falls, and I live on 80 acres here, but I also have 100 acres of land up by Cushing. And I can see that my time is already up, so with that, I'm going to just have to. No, I decided that after the work and worry I put into this presentation, I am going to give this my best. And I could talk for about 2 hours about woodland management and things that I've done, but I had to condense this down to 10 minutes, but I did leave time for one little blurb in here. I had an uncle that asked me, "Hey, Stan, did I ever tell you about the time I fell off a 32-foot ladder?" And I said, "Geez, no, you never did." And he said, "Well, I was on the bottom rung when it happened, so I didn't get hurt, but it was a 32-foot ladder." And that kind of leads me to jumping to conclusions and keeping things in perspective. Really taught me a lesson there. So my land by Cushing is, let me share screen and boop, 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 boop. Okay.
So Stan, there's a green button on the bottom that says share screen.
I did that, and I'm jumping to this. And it's not working. However,
If it doesn't work, I can share the part. Oh, there you go. It's working now.
Good. Thanks to my tech support system here. Okay. And I want to change it to slideshow mode. I have this woodland by Cushing that I found in 2018 that I purchased. And when I was reading the Morrison County Record in 2018, I saw a little blurb in there, free forest management seminars planned for woodland or for landowners. And it's something that your local soil conservation district put on. And so I said, I've got to go to that. And it was in Sylvan Town Hall. And it was there that I met Clayton and a few other people. And I learned about the Camp Ripley Sentinel landscape and the potential for cost share practices on my woodland. So the first thing that I did was I wrote a woodland stewardship plan for my property. And just to give you a rough inventory of what I've got out there, about 77 acres of that woodland is harvested aspen. It was done in 1991. So this year that aspen is 30 years old and it's really, really looking nice. It's really a good site for aspen. Then I have about 15 acres of more mature timber that was not harvested at that time. Some acreage of open areas in the southwest and in the east part there, and a few small wetland areas. So I wrote myself a woodland stewardship plan, and that was the first project that the Conservation District cost shared on for me, was the writing of a woodland stewardship plan. And I had a bunch of goals for my property, and they were to a healthy woods, as much red oak as possible, good deer habitat, habitat for other wildlife. And with that plan, I entered into a contract to do the cost share work out there. First project and the most important project out there was Buckthorn Control. And I did not have a lot of buckthorn out there, but I did have just enough of it so that I did not want to see that stuff out there. And got to work on that. And that initial contract was for $3,000 because this was already the spring of 2019 and the work had to be done by the midsummer, by July 1st into June. So I figured I only had time to do about $3,000 worth of work out there. Then I received word that the grant was extended for another year. And so I told Clayton, can I up that to about a $5,000 contract, which he gladly did. And then I got that money kind of encumbered and worked through. And I moved right along and I asked Clayton, can we up it one more time, being I've got the rest of the winter until the spring of 2020 to keep going. I wanted the max at that time, the $10,000 maximum contract. So he agreed to that, and I went ahead, and about a year ago, I was really hitting it. It generated a lot of firewood, and I was really working day after day after day out in my woods to do the buckthorn control oak release and aspen thinning. And those were my priority items and were part of my contract. So I also love the trail system that I have out there. Let me just keep going. Oops. There. And it brings a lot of joy to my family. And they really, my grandkids in particular, love the trail system out there. So I worked long and hard, and in the end, I was able to do all the work necessary to encumber the full $10,000 of cost share that was available for me. And I really did a lot of things out there. I released hundreds of oak trees and did probably close to 30 acres of aspen thinning. And I got about 90+% of my buckthorn under control out there. Every time I'm out there, I see a few more buckthorn plants, and I'm constantly working on that. So that's going to be never ending. But nonetheless, I keep plugging along. In addition to all of that, the work on my own land, I'm also certified by the Minnesota DNR as a woodland stewardship plan writer. And so I contacted some landowners in that watershed and have customers in that watershed that I've written woodland stewardship plans for. Some of them I did 10 years ago. They were able to also get cost share for an updated woodland stewardship plan. And I also had a customer that did a new woodland stewardship plan as well. So I had about 6 customers that I was able to do a free woodland stewardship plan for because the cost share pretty well covered that expense. One in particular was a new customer, and he had a very old, a 30 to 40-year-old woodland stewardship plan. It wasn't even called that back then, but he was one of my prime examples. He had 160 acres right across the road from Camp Ripley. So I wrote his woodland stewardship plan, presented it to him, and I said, you owe me nothing. This is free. It's going to be cost shared by the Conservation District. And in that plan, I had, with his goals and objectives, he wanted better deer habitat. He had an over-mature woodland and a very thin understory. And I went ahead and wrote my plan geared towards that. I said, you need to harvest all the mature aspen and do a mature oak thinning out there, a selective harvest to open up that canopy to get some oak regeneration and to get some understory out there. And he went along with all of that. He jumped right into that and did all of that in this past year. So I was really happy. It's been really fun to cooperate with Clayton and work through all these projects with you guys. And so thank you for giving me this opportunity to tell you about my land and the things that I have done. Some of the pictures in the slideshow were actually from my 80 acres at home. I did a aspen harvest here and a pine thinning, but the project that I did up at Cushing, it's going to be ongoing. I've got, my plan was for 10 years, but I've also got a 20 to 50-year vision of what I want things to look like over time up there. And by that, I mean, I want that woods, that 77 acres of aspen, to be kind of a patchwork of new harvest areas, intermediate and mature aspen. And that'll be the best wildlife habitat that you could get in aspen woods. And then I also have a long-term vision for what this land might be in beyond all of that. But thanks again, Clayton, for the help you gave me out there and for the cost share assistance I received.
Yeah, no
All
problem.
right, thank you. Thank you, Clayton and Stan. I'm gonna turn it over to Adam, and he's gonna introduce our last landowner.
Oh, if you want to pull up, I have one slide in our PowerPoint if you want to pull that up for Tim.
Yep.
Tim, if you can unmute yourself, and if you have your camera on, I'm not sure I can look though, but so our next landowner talking will be Tim Strack. Tim is a great guy to work with, and he's been going through a conservation easement with our office. He is part of the wild rice program, easement program. And so he's on Farnham Lake, which is a DNR priority lake for wild rice. So he enrolled his land into an easement, but he's also been very active in his on his land of also having a forward stewardship plan, and he's going to be talking about that. I do want to put in a plug. So Sheila started the easement with him, and I've been working on to the end. He is an easement person, but he's also my IT guy. So I've been teaching him Zoom, and hopefully he's going to pass it on to everybody else he knows of how to use Zoom. And he's very technologically advanced, and so he's going to be. If you have any troubles, shoot a question to him, and he'll be able to help you out. So. Is that right, Tim?
Yeah, that's yep. Thank you for that. Yeah. Well, good morning, everybody. Oh, I look at myself here. Wow, you're showing my age. But I kind of wrote it all down, and I've been practicing it over and over and over. So I'm Tim Strack. I live in Randall, and I'm married to my wife Lori. We have 6 children. In 1991, my wife Lori and I, we acquired 163 acres from my uncle and from my mother. This property is located in section 17 and 18, Byron Township, Cass County. As a young man, I had a passion for planting pine trees. I planted pine trees. Look out my window here, and I can see the trees that I planted back in 1986 and planted pine trees for people around the area. So once we acquired this property, I wanted to plant trees up there also. And so somehow I got in touch with Al Sharp, and Al put together a forestry plan for me, a woodland stewardship program for me. So he came to the farm and he dug down in that soil, and we had about 6-8 inches of darker sand, and then with all real light sand. And he said that best thing for you to do is let's plant pine trees. So at that time, my family, well, with 6 kids, I probably had 3 of them. We went up there and started planting trees. And as of today, we have planted approximately 40,000 trees. That, through here, here, there, here. And we also maintain a trail system. And then we also maintain these openings, for deer hunting and for wildlife. And then, a few years ago, probably 10 years ago, I got a letter from Kelly Condiff stating that they wanted to put this 40 acres into a wild rice easement. Wow, this is cool. Showed it to my wife. And well, when my grandparents moved here in 1920, whatever, they had a road system, then put from here and hooked up. These were actually the roads through here to Leader and this way to Staples. Well, when Potlatch sold this right here to RDO, I became landlocked. And so then I could not go through with doing this easement. So I told Kelly, if an easement would ever work, I would like to involve this property and this property. And this right here, I have a reciprocal easement with the county. County lets me go from this property to this property, and the county uses my property to get up here where they have pine plantation. So then, what happened was when this became RDO and they clear cut all this, and over to here, all of a sudden my property grew to the south to encompass this Grant snowmobile trail in the property. So I got a call from Kelly, and Kelly says, "Hey, Hauser said that we can use that Grant snowmobile trail to put your farm, which I call it, into an easement." And it was called a RIM easement, Reinvest in Minnesota, or maybe called Adam had said. So then Sheila, he said that I'd be working with Sheila in Crow Wing County. Sheila came out and we went through the whole property. And then I started working with Adam. And I just have to say such a huge thank you to Kelly and to Sheila and to Adam for helping me with this process of putting this property in that easement. These people were fantastic, so much information. I could go back just a little bit. Big thank you to L Sharp, Dean Mackey. They helped me, where do I get all the equipment to do everything I need and all the cost sharing. Dean Mackey helped me a lot with cost sharing. Turn my page. So then when we were getting into the RIN easement, Sheila and Adam said that I needed to do a new updated forestry plan. And Keith Seminar did this for me. So with the old plan and this plan, some of the things we recently have done is in this area right here, we took out all the mature red pine. And in this area here, we had enough just beautiful red pine that we had a semi-load of poles, or we sold a Bell pole. And I thought that was pretty cool. And then we did a lot of clearing of the aspen. And then we also did thinning here. This would be the first trees we planted were here and here. And we did our first year thinning. Oh, that was all fun to do. I'd like to do a thank you to my son, Tom Strack. He is a Crow Wing forester, and he's been a big help saying, hey, Dad, you should do this, do that. And I always look to him for advice. And he also said he's going to be watching this later. So one thing that I'm really excited about, my last thing, is I don't remember who would put me, I think it was Keith, put me in touch with Paul Priestley. Paul Priestley, I met him at the farm, and he said, how would you like to put this field in and make it into a pine savanna? So he explained to me that he does prescribed burns and he writes grants, and when the money's come available, him and his team, will burn this off, because this is like my uncle used to graze cattle throughout this whole area, and it's been 30 years, so it's just like dead grass growing all the time. So he says we'll burn that off, and he says the small trees will get burned, and the bigger trees, he said, well, keep growing and someday make a canopy in this field, and then all the seed that's in this, underneath all this dead grass, is going to bloom, and it's going to be great for birds and bees, and they'll have the trees to nest in. And so he said, he called me a month ago and said he got the grant. And so once we can get a burning permit from DNR, that is our next plan, is to burn this field off. And then he also said, then we're going to do these openings, like this opening here and here. And then my wife's deer stand right there. We're going to be burning that also and making this into a pine savanna. So I also have an easement here where I live in Randall on the ACUB. So I knew all about easements and stuff, but the hard stickler was getting away for Hauser and for Cass and Crow Wing County to come into land and to inspect stuff periodically. So I'd like to really thank everybody, and that's my presentation.
Thank you, Tim, so much. It's always great to hear what landowners are doing and how much they value the property that they have. And so thank you for sharing.
Thanks, Tim.
So
thank you.
I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our supervisor, JoAnn Weaver, to kind of close us off.
Thank you, Melissa. As most of you know, I'm JoAnn Weaver. I represent District 4 for Crow Wing County Soil and Water. I would like to offer a special thank you to the following. First of all, today's featured landowners for all the work that they've done. Today's presenters for sharing their knowledge and expertise. SWCD staff and board for their dedication and hard work. And the many partners who joined together in support of the projects that were highlighted today and supporting the SWCD goals of preserving natural resources, ensuring continued soil productivity, protecting water quality, and preserving wildlife. I think you'll agree that today's program has certainly been an inspiration. It has shown us what to do, and it illustrates that we can do it better by working together. So bottom line, I encourage you to take this information and incorporate it into any land use decisions that you're involved in. Always remember to lead by example. And with that, I'll say thank you, everyone. This has been a great program. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you. I'm all done, Melissa.